Hi, I'm Gaviola. Welcome to the Peak on Global, where we break down what is trending in the business world and what you need to know to stay ahead of the curve. Joining me now is Chang from the Peak podcast. Welcome, Brett.
Hey, Ann, how you doing?
I'm okay, but I'll be honest with you. This first story is pretty upsetting to me. It is the fact that Canada's big two airlines, so Air Canada and WestJet, had a much higher proportion of their flights delayed this summer compared to their American peers. This lines up with what I've been hearing anecdotally, but now we have the data. Brett, what is going on?
So this is absolutely troubling news, especially for anybody who travels, whether it's frequently or less often. We've noticed it anecdotally that if you go to the airport now, you're going to see more and more delays from Canadian Airlines. And now that we have comparable data with the US, it's very troubling to see. And this is all part of a trend that's been happening over the past years. Ever since the pandemic and the reopening from the pandemic, airlines, especially Canadian Airlines and Canadian airports, have struggled to properly staff up and to resume services that were once available or had the same efficiency as before the pandemic. And this is just extra proof of that.
Yeah, travel is back in a big way, and that is good. There is also a little bit of good news in here in that, as much as travel is back with a vengeance, that comes with hiccups, the kind of silver lining, as I like to describe it, is that our major Canadian airlines are improving on the being on time front when you compare what's happening this year with last summer. So I guess it's positive and it's all relative.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's exactly this point of slowly but surely they're able to staff back up to ensure that the airports and the airlines have all the employees they need to run efficiently and on time consistently. And so it's great to see that. The problem is that many of these jobs, they're not just jobs that you can take people and put them in. There's a lot of training that's involved. There's a lot of safety that's required. And so that is a tougher role to fill than you might see at a normal like Tim Hortons or any other retail store. So that's a big issue, and it's just going to take some time for them to get back up and running. But I think we're on the right track here, which is good to see.
Yeah, I do remember the days when you could kind of count on your flight arriving pretty much within a certain time. Now what I'm doing to kind of mitigate that is give myself a big old cushion at the beginning and at the end of a journey, which is a whole other dynamic that we kind of all have to contend with. Let's talk about this second topic and what is in a name. So in the case of the company formerly known as Twitter, an estimated $4 billion worth of brand value right there. Let's talk about Elon Musk's decision to rename Twitter X. He has a long history of using the X in company names. He even recently named one of his many, many children X. Brett, your thoughts on this from a branding perspective?
So this is something that Elon Musk, as you kind of alluded to, has been trying to do for a long time. Originally, when he had a merger with PayPal, so he had a company called X.com, there was PayPal, they merged together and they created what now is modern PayPal. When that happened, he actually wanted X.com to be the primary branding instead of PayPal. That didn't happen. And then since then, you've seen SpaceX, and now X is Twitter. And what he's trying to do is make X into a super app. So if you go to somewhere like China, there's WeChat, which you use, which is one app that you use for everything. You can order a rideshare from it. You can use it for transactions. It's your social media source. It's your messenger app. There's a bunch of different tools in this one application. And this is what he's trying to do with X. Now, he didn't think that Twitter was the appropriate branding for that type of super app. And so his idea is to just switch the name altogether and change the branding outright. However, and I think this is a good point that a lot of marketers are making, there's a lot of brand equity built in that Twitter name. Tweeting became a verb, and it's really hard to find a brand that's so strong that people are using it in day-to-day conversation like they were with Twitter and tweeting. So they're losing all of that. Now, whether or not he can pull off the super app, well, that's really the bet that he's been making since day one. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I do miss the days of the OG bird on the Twitter platform. I want to share a little bit of tea. So I recently attended the Collision Tech Conference. This is still on the second topic. In fact, you and I, Brett, bumped into each other quite a few times there. I was chatting with some people who are part of Elon's circle of friends, mostly people who knew him from way back when. They described him as kind of big, awkward, actually not very quick when it comes to witty banter. He's a lot quicker on the draw when it comes to tweeting, I suppose. I guess my question here is, do we still call them tweets if the company isn't Twitter and the bird logo isn't a thing anymore?
Well, according to the FAQ on the X website, they're actually not called Zeets, and with an X. And so that, I don't know if it's going to catch on. I'm still going to call them tweets, and I'm still going to call it Twitter. But hey, we'll see. Maybe we'll be Zeeting soon.
Zeeting. I'm going to have to think about that a little bit. And if we had more time, we'd get into, the rival threads and what's going on there, and reports that, more than half the people who initially signed up to this are not active on the platform anymore. But we'll put a pause on that one, move to the third topic, which is Spotify. It's increasing prices for its various subscriptions. This is happening in Canada, the US, Mexico, UK. This company, like so many of its streaming peers, is under pressure to make the switch from prioritizing user growth over making money to much more of a robust focus on monetization. What are your thoughts on this, Brett?
I think what Spotify is doing here is they're following, as you mentioned, the lead of other streaming giants, but in particular Netflix. So what Netflix did was they increased the prices of all of their different plans. They put in place the restrictions so that you could no longer have one account on multiple devices, that you had to have it on one TV or one laptop or one phone. You couldn't share as easily. And the result of this, both the price action and the restrictions, was a significant increase in revenue and thus share price as well. And so Spotify is looking at this thinking, hey, can we do something similar? Now, there are only really two players in the market. And I know we'll get into this, but there's Apple Music and there's Spotify. And so when you only have two players, you're competing against one another. I'm pretty loyal to Spotify myself, and so I'm happy to pay the increase. I think many people will too, which will just be an easy way for Spotify to increase their top line revenue.
Yeah, and full disclosure, so I use the Spotify free service. It's a thing, people. I've never paid for it. It is, I admit, a frustrating but wallet-friendly choice I continue to make. And weirdly, I have no problem paying Apple for my music, but that's a whole other rabbit hole we don't necessarily have to dip into now. You mentioned that you do use Spotify and you'll happily pay for it for music, probably on principle as well, right, Brett?
Yeah, well, look, I'm happy to pay for Spotify. It just makes it really easy. It makes it really easy to listen to any song in the world, and that's a really good service. And I actually pay for it for my whole family, and I think it's $17 a month. And so to me, that's still great value that I'm receiving. And so I was happy to just agree to the prompt when I got it and just pay the extra couple of bucks that it is. But I use Spotify for everything. I use it for music, I use it for podcasts, and it's just a great all-in-one audio app.
That sounds good. We'll agree to disagree on that one. Thank you so much for your time and your insight, Brett.
Thanks, Ann.
You can get all your daily business news with a Peak Daily podcast. It is available for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you find your favorite podcasts.